You are 17. The first thing they teach you is how to tie 20 layers of cloth across your face, so the air does not kill you before the shift is over. Not the smoke. The air itself. This is your life as a bleach packer on the Lee Marshes, the autumn of 1888, and the wage is real. You are paid in real coins. Real bread on a real table. So is the white cloud. You will spend that wage learning to breathe. There is a man coughing somewhere across the yard. You cannot see him yet. You will learn to find your way by that cough, the way other men steer by bells. One day, a government man will come to this works with a leather notebook and a glass tube, and he will measure almost everything in the yard except you. Get gassed badly enough in the chamber, and you have about 1 hour left. Remember that. It is the only clock that matters here. Level 1. The gate. You came east because the east is where the work is. Out past the last decent streets, where London stops pretending, the marsh begins. And on the marsh, the works. Soap on one side, a fertilizer yard on the other. The river carrying off what none of them want to keep. A man could promenade this embankment, someone wrote, with a gasworks on his right and 2 chemical works behind him. You do not promenade. You clock in. The gates give you something the streets never did. And this is the part nobody warns you about, because it is the part that keeps you. Belonging. 30 men who know your name by the end of the first week. A fire in the shed where you eat, and the fire is warm, and the man beside it saves you a place because you shared your bread on the Tuesday. The foreman nods at you on the Friday, and you feel it in your chest like a small sun. You are inside something now. You are one of them. You are paid by the cask. Piecework. Coins for what you pack, not for the hours you stand there. That first Friday you carry home more than your father ever did in the sacking trade, and you set it on the table, and your mother does not say anything, but she touches the coins. Nobody tells you the men who taught you this trade were earning nearly double 6 years back for the same lungs. Level 2. The grease. The coughing man has a name. The others call him Tom Sankey. Tom is maybe 40. He looks 60. He has the leaden pallor all the old hands have, a gray the color of the powder itself, and eyes gone flat and lusterless like something behind them has been rubbed out. Tom teaches you the grease. Before the chamber, you strip and you coat yourself, chest, throat, wrists, in oil or tallow as thick as you can bear. You ask why you cannot just wash after, with water, like a normal man. Tom almost laughs, which sets him coughing. Water, he tells you, would flay you alive. The powder is on your skin, in it. Water wakes it up. So you grease, and you learn the muzzle. 20 thicknesses of flannel, bound across your mouth, goggles jammed over your eyes. And you learn the rule that governs everything. The rule that is really the whole trade in one line. You go into the chamber, you pack. After about 20 minutes, you come out and you rest, and then you go back in. 20 minutes, no longer. That number was never caution. It was the far edge of what your body could take and still walk out. You are proud of how fast you learn it. That is the trap closing, and you cannot hear it because it sounds exactly like getting good at your job. Level 3. The measurement. You step into a white room where the powder hangs everywhere in the air, a fog of it, chloride of lime. You shovel it and cask it before it can settle. The chlorine that made it still hangs in there, greenish and sharp, and it finds every gap your flannel missed. Your eyes stream behind the goggles. 20 minutes. You count the casks, because the casks are the coins. And then, one gray morning, the word goes round the yard. The inspector is coming. You feel it before you understand it. A lift in the chest. The same small sun as the foreman's nod. Someone official. Someone from the government. Come at last to see. There are laws now, one of the older men says. There have been laws for years. You did not know that. You turn it over all morning like a warm coin. Someone is watching. Someone with a title has finally come to stand in this cloud and see what it does. The inspector arrives after noon. He is a courteous man in a good coat. He does not go into the chamber. He does not ask to see your hands, or Tom's chest, or the flannel, or the grease. He walks to the base of the great chimney, and he takes out a glass tube, and he measures the gas going up it, the muriatic acid escaping into the sky. There is a legal limit, it turns out. 1/5 of a grain of acid for every cubic foot of air the chimney breathes out. He measures. He writes it in the leather notebook. He is satisfied. He tips his hat, and he goes. They wrote a law to protect the air. Nobody wrote one for the men standing under it. That is the whole thing, and it takes you the rest of the day to feel the bottom of it. Every law you'd hoped was for you had been pointed, the entire time, at the sky. Level 4. The cough. After that, you stop looking at the gate for someone to come. Your body starts keeping its own record instead, and the entries are small, and then they are not. Your teeth go first. The acid in the air rots them from the outside, and within a year, you are one of the men who can only eat bread with the crust cut off. A crust is more than your mouth can manage. Your clothes go the way of your teeth. The fumes eat cloth, so you work in paper like the rest. And some days, the paper too has to be thrown out by dark. And still you would not call it a bad life, not out loud. There is the shed, and the fire, and a place kept for you beside it. There is a joke Tom tells, the same one every winter, that lands so badly it makes you laugh until it makes you both cough. You are one of them. That is the thing you cannot put down, even now. The belonging is real, and it is the hook that was in you from the first warm Friday. Then comes the thing that frightens you more than the cough, because it does not feel like getting worse. It feels like getting used to it. One morning, you walk toward the chamber, and you realize you cannot smell the chlorine anymore. The sharp green reek that used to make your eyes run before you even reached the door. Gone. You think you have grown strong. You have not. The nerve in you that smells it has simply given up. Your own body has stopped sounding the alarm. Under the shed door, one evening, you find a pamphlet someone has pushed through. The match girls over in Bow, it says, walked out in the summer and won. There is talk of the Dockers next. You pick it up. You mean to read it on your rest. But your rest is 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is 2 more casks. And 2 more casks is the coins your mother touches. So you fold the pamphlet twice and put it in your paper coat to read later. And you carry it there for weeks, folded, unopened, against your chest. Level 5. The count. Here is the arithmetic that kills men in this trade. And it is not the chlorine, it is the count. Piecework means the clock is not your friend, and it is not your enemy. It is simply nothing to you, because you are paid by the cask and not the hour. So the 20-minute rule and the wage are always, quietly, at war. Every rest you take is a cask you do not pack. Every cask you do not pack is bread. And the powder does not know your mother's face. Your wage keeps falling, year on year. You are packing harder than Tom ever did to bring home half of what Tom once did. So on a cold Thursday, with the count short and the rent close, you go back into the white room before your rest is up. Just one more cask. You have done it before. Everyone has done it before. The cloud takes you standing. You do not remember falling. You remember the ceiling of the shed, and Tom's gray face over yours, and the ache where 2 men had dragged you out by the ankles across the chamber floor. You were under, they said, no more than a minute or 2. A minute or 2 is inside the hour. The hour is the only clock that matters. You lived because someone counted, and because it was you, and not Tom, whose turn it was to be lucky. You are back in the chamber the next morning. The Count does not forgive a missed day. Finale. The Muzzle. You navigate the yard by Tom's cough for another 2 winters. It is how you know where he is. Always. That wet, tearing sound, off to your left, by the casking bench, steady as weather. And then one morning, it is not there. You stand in the yard and you listen for it. And the place where it should be is just quiet. And the quiet is the loudest thing you have ever heard. Nobody says much. In this trade, a man's cough stopping is not news. It is only the end of a sound you had started to think of as part of the air. The fullest accounts of this work come from the great chemical towns in the north, not from London, from a journalist who walked those yards and called the men he found there white slaves. But the marsh east of London ran the same trade, breathed the same cloud, and buried men the same way, quietly, by the river. You tie your flannel. 20 layers, the way Tom showed you. Your hands do it without you. There is a boy at the gate. 17, maybe. Come east because the east is where the work is. He does not know how to tie the cloth yet, and he is watching you because you are the one who knows. So you tie it for him. Chest, throat, wrists. Grease first, you tell him, never water. 20 minutes, no longer. And you hear, coming out of your own mouth, the first rough edge of a cough that is not quite yours yet. This was the whole of it in the end. A wage you could carry home in your fist, paid in a coin you would never stop spending. If that stayed with you, the Count, the grease, the sky they measured instead of the men, then subscribe. There are more of these coming, and every one of them starts at a gate like this. Because here is the part almost nobody knows. Works like this one kept running, cloud and casks and 20-minute shifts into the 1920s. 2 more generations of boys tied the cloth. Somewhere in you is the boy who stood at the gate, believing the wage was the whole story. And the new boy has his flannel on now. He picks up the shovel. His count starts at 0. And it starts today. And he thinks, the way you did, that the coins are the thing he came here to carry home.